Hello 7th graders, this is Miss White and today we're doing lesson 2, part of a whole as a percent. Let's look at our opening exercise. A. What is the whole unit in each scenario? When we talk about the whole, this means that this is the number that other numbers are being compared to. Let's read our first scenario. 15 is what percent of 90? Well, 15 is what is being compared to 90. So here the number 90 is our whole unit. Our next scenario. What number is 10% of 56? Here we're trying to find 10% of 56. The number of 10% is what we're comparing to 56, and so the number 56 is our whole unit. Now we have 90% of a number is 180. Well, 180 is being the number compared to because it is at 90% of our unknown number. And because we don't know the unknown number that is supposed to be our whole unit, we are going to write unknown. Go ahead and pause the video and try the next 3 scenarios by yourself. Alright, now that you are done trying them by yourself, let's go over them. A bag of candy contains 300 pieces and 25% of the pieces in the bag are red. Well, part of this is that we have 25% of the pieces in the bag are red, and we're comparing that 25% to our total of 300. So our whole unit here is going to be 300 pieces. %70 of the students earned a B on the test. Well, the part is that 70% of students got a B on the test. But if we think about the students in the class, that's 70% out of how many percent of students which are in the class. So that's going to be all the students in the class. Now, 20 girls in the class represented 55% of the students in the class. So here we know that the 20 girls are 55% of the students in class. Again, like in the scenario above, we have a percentage of students who earned a B on the test. Now we have a percentage of girls in the class. So our whole unit, again, is going to be all the students in class. Now we're moving on to B. Read each problem and complete the table to record what you know. This time we're not just finding the whole, but we're also finding the part in the percent. Let's read our first scenario. 40% of students on the field trip love the museum. If there are 40 students on the field trip, how many love the museum? Now the first thing I'm going to fill out in this chart is the percent, because we know that 40% of the students on the field trip love the museum. And so that one is pretty easy to fill out. Now in this problem, we are comparing the amount of students who love the field trip and the amount of students who are on the field trip. So here we know that there's a total of 20 students on the field trip, so that is going to represent our whole. Now, what about our part? Well, here it doesn't tell us anything about our part, so we're just going to put a question mark here. Let's read our second problem. 40% of the students on the field trip love the museum. If 20 students love the museum, how many are on the field trip? Again, We know that our percent is going to be 40 because right off the bat it tells us that 40% of the students on the field trip love the museum. Now it says if 20 students love the museum, and that 20 students is representing that 40% of how many students are on the field trip, then it says how many students are on this field trip. So here it is actually giving us the part. We don't know what the whole is because that's what it is asking. How many are on the field trip? Well, we don't know. So we are going to put 20 students in as our part. And then we are going to put a question mark for our whole since we do not know that. Here's our last problem. 20 students on the field trip love the museum. If there are 40 students on the field trip, what percent love the museum? Okay, so we know that 20 students on the field trip love the museum out of the 40 students that are on the field trip. So 20 is going to represent our part, our 20 students, and the total amount of students that are on this field trip is 40. Now, we do not know what the percent is. In fact, we know that because that is what the question is asking us. So we are also going to put a question mark this time into our percent. Now let's move on to the next page on example 1. In Ty's math class, 20% of students earned an A on the test. If there were 30 students in class, how many got an A? Here we're comparing the 20% of students that earned an A on the test to the total amount of students in the class, which is 30 students. Here, I know that 20% is my percent and that my 30 students is my whole. What I don't know is my part, and that's how many students got an A. First, I'm going to show you how to represent this with using a diagram. My diagram is going to represent the amount of total students that I have, which is 30. We know that my 30 students is going to represent 100% of my class, and that the 20% of students here earned an A on the test. To solve the 20% of my 30 students, I need to come up with is what is the percent of each student? So what is my percent for one student? Well, here I know that my 30 students represents my 100%. So I'm going to have 30 out of 100. When I write this in decimal form, I'm going to get 0.3. Now I know that 0.3 of a student is 1%. Now I know that 0.3 or 3/10 of a student is 1%. I'm going to take my 0.3 and multiply it by 20%. When I do that, I get an answer of 6. So now I know that 6 students on the test got an A. Now, there is another way using a different diagram, which I'm about to show you, and you need to pick which one makes more sense to you and which one you think you're going to best utilize. Here, I'm going to draw 2 number lines, one on top of the other. One is going to be for my percent, and the other one is going to be for my amount of students. Here I'm going to start at 0%, and then here's going to be my 100%. I know that 20% of students got an A, so I'm going to mark the 20% right here. Then for my amount of students, we know that we can compare 0 students to the class, and then we have 30 students that represent our 100% of our class, and what we need to find out is the 20% here. Here, I know that my 30 students is equal to 100%. Now to figure out how much of a student equals 1%, I'm going to divide 100 by 100 to get my 1%. And what I do on one side, I have to do to the other. So I'm also going to divide 30 by 100. And when I divide 30 by 100, I'm going to get 0.3, which is also 3/10. So now I know that 3/10 is equal to my 1%. Now that I have the 1%, I need to figure out the 20%. So again, I'm going to multiply my 1% times 20, because 1 times 20 is going to give us our 20%. And now what I do to this side, I need to do to the other side. So I'm going to multiply 20 times 3/10, and that is going to give me 6. Showing again that 6 students got an A on the test. Let's move on to the next page for example 2. In Ty's English class, 70% of the students completed an essay by the due date. There are 30 students in Ty's English class. How many completed the essay by the due date? Now, in our past problem, we used a tape diagram and we used a number line. We're going to move a little bit past that and just go straight into the math. So here, I know that my whole is 100%. And that my whole here is my 30 students. So again, we know that 30 students is equal to 100%. Now, to find out how much of a student is equal to 1%, I'm going to divide by 100. So I'm going to divide by 100 here and divide by 100 here. Now, 30 divided by 100 is going to give us 0.3, which is 3/10. And when we divide 100 by 100, it is going to give us 1. So now we're left with 1%. So again, like in our last problem, 3/10 of a student is equal to 1%. Now, we know that 70% of the students completed the essay by the due date. So we're going to multiply 1% by 70. Let's go ahead and complete that on both sides. Now, 1 times 70 is going to give us our 70% that we are looking for. And 3/10 times 70 is going to give us 21. So now I know that 21 students completed the essay by the due date. Now let's move on below to example 3. A bag of candy contains 300 pieces, of which 28% are red. How many pieces are red? So which quantity represents the whole? Well, here, the 300 pieces represent the whole. Our next question. Which of the terms in the percent equation is unknown? Define a letter, which is our variable, to represent the unknown quantity. Here, we know our whole and we know our percent. So what we don't know is our part. And our part is the number of red candies. Now we're going to let R as our variable represent the number of red candies. All right, our next question. Write an expression using the percent and the whole to represent the number of pieces of red candy. To figure out what our part is, I'm going to take our percentage and multiply it by our whole. Here our percentage is 28%, so I can represent that as 28 over 100 times our whole, which is 300. Now, if we were going to type this out in a calculator, we can use 0.28 times 300. Now, write and solve an equation to find the unknown quantity. We know that our part is equal to our percent times our whole. And we're going to let our part be represented by the variable r. And our percent is 0.28. And our whole is 300. Go ahead and solve this equation in your calculator. All right. And what you should have gotten is that r equals 84. And now we know that there are 84 red pieces of candy in the bag. In our lesson summary for today, visual models or numeric methods can be used to solve percent problems. An equation can be used to solve percent problems as we take our part equals our percent times whole. All right, great job today, 7th graders. I will see you in class.